For months, I've been saying that the PS4 version of eFootball feels more responsive than the PS5 version, but I didn't have any proof to back this up until now. On the release day of 4.4, I had to play a couple games on the PS5 version as my PS4 version hadn't downloaded yet, and I thought the game felt like a sluggish mess. But I said to the stream, wait until I can get on the PS4 version before we start saying that 4.4 felt laggier, and as soon as I switched, my complaints were gone and the snappy and responsive gameplay was back. So today I'm going to show you this input delay on PlayStation, how to play on the PS4 version even if you have a PlayStation 5 like myself, and also how to reduce this input delay if you are on PC. And for Xbox players, whenever I play on Xbox, I find it just as responsive or even more so than the PS4 version, but I think you can just sit back and understand the advantage you have against the PS5 noobs in cross-platform play. So after having a hunch that the PS5 version has input delay, I decided to put it to the test. First we will play two clips one after another and see if we were able to show the difference. You can see they look pretty much identical, but when we slow it down so we're viewing the footage frame by frame, we can start noticing a difference. There will be two things we are looking for. First, my controller overlay, which will show which frame I am pressing the shoot button. And then second, the first frame of the power bar appearing, which will tell us when the game is processing our input. I've also used the same players in the same circumstances in order to maintain consistency in between tests. Both the PS4 and PS5 version run at 60 frames per second, and the footage is capturing all 60 frames. We will call the frame where I press the shoot button frame 0. On frame 0, nothing will happen in the game. It will take time for my controller to send the signal to the PlayStation, and then the game will have to process this input into an action on the pitch. What this testing will demonstrate is that this processing of the input will take longer on the PS5 version on the game compared to the PS4 version. And this is also true of the PC version unless you change some settings, which I'll show later. On frame 0, the shoot button is pressed. However, nothing happens in game as my controller is still sending the signal to the PlayStation. You can then see it takes until the 9th frame until the bearer bar shows up. For some reason, it shows up one frame before in the bottom left compared to underneath the player model. This happened in some of my tests, but not others, and I don't know how to explain this inconsistency. So on the PlayStation 5 version, it took 9 frames between me pressing my button and the action being processed in game. However, when we go to the PlayStation 4 version, and keep in mind I'm playing the PS4 version on a PS5 console, the results differ. On PS4, now it only takes 8 frames for the same process to finish. Now, we are talking about very small time intervals here, so if you think this difference will be too small to notice, for a portion of the population you are right. Some won't be able to detect this frame of input delay, but for reference you can see that when I tap the shoot button it is only held for 2 frames, and yet even just 2 frames, a mere 33 milliseconds, this is enough for the human brain to notice. And there's been studies done to back this up. This graph here from Yale University shows that the average gamer can detect input delays of 40 milliseconds, with the quickest groups being in the region of 20 milliseconds. This study also showed that there is no clear correlation between a player's relative skill and their ability to perceive input delay. So no matter your rank, understanding and trying to remove this input delay could help you. I think in eFootball, if you are someone like myself who loves to dribble, you will more likely be in that group who can perceive the differences even if they are small. So I decided to do the testing for dribbling. The results were similar. The PS4 version had 1 less frame of input delay compared to the PS5 version. And in the initial shooting test done before, it was done with a goalkeeper, so I decided to repeat the shooting test with Suarez, who has 96 finishing. You will see it only takes until frame 7 to register the shooting input on the PS4 version, and frame 9, the power bar appears on the PS5 version, replicating the frames of input lag. Overall, these shots were 1 frame quicker than the testing done with the goalkeeper. This is because Konami made a change in version 4.4 to the finishing stat, meaning higher finishing stat players can now release their shot quicker. The same also applies to passing. So if you've noticed higher rated passers and finishers being that little bit quicker, you would also notice the input delay difference between the PS4 and PS5 version. But there were 2 more factors that might aggravate input delay that I wanted to test. The initial testing was done in the training ground, so I was curious if the input delay might be greater in an actual match, with the fans in the stadium maybe causing additional lag. And of course, I wanted to test in online matches because at the end of the day, this is where the input lag is most important. So to be brief, playing an actual match in a stadium appeared to have no additional influence on input delay. I only tested 1 stadium. Testing more than 1 was outside of the scope of today's testing. But when I tested in online matches, the results became interesting. I had to be a bit more careful to ensure I am replicating the same circumstances, so I settled for a pass from a stationary position with Maldini. I also wanted to avoid any defenders being too close to me as their presence might mess with the results, as the player with the ball is under pressure. I also decided to test the input lag on player switching and also the input delay while moving with the ball. In online testing, it took until frame 12 to fully switch player on the PS5 version, and also took until frame 12 on the PS4 version. When I tested in an offline match, I got different results. The PS5 player switching process was completed a frame quicker compared to its online counterpart, and the offline PS4 was a frame quicker than the offline PS5, but 2 frames ahead of its online PS4 test. Despite both games being considered a 4-bar connection by Konami, there is quite a noticeable delay between the matches. While moving with the ball, the power bar appeared on the 9th frame for both online tests, and it took until the 11th frame for the power bar to appear on the stationary pass for both versions. This shows consistency with the theory of slightly higher ping in the PS4 game. So if we want to know how to remove this input delay, we'll have to understand why it exists. The reason this input delay exists is because of a setting called vsync. Vsync forces your graphics card to wait for your monitor to finish showing the current frame before sending a new one. It's designed to stop screen tearing, but at the cost of potentially adding input lag. That's because your actions get delayed until the next refresh cycle. The PC version of eFootball has it turned on by default, but there are ways to disable it. The PS5 version has vsync, but the PS4 version does not. And of course, on console, there's no way to disable vsync on the PS5 version. You have to play on the PS4 version to avoid it. So if you have a PS5 but you want to play the PS4 version, here's how to do it. You simply go to the PlayStation Store and search up eFootball. Then you click on the 3 dots beside play game and you'll be shown a list of options. Click select version. If you have played eFootball on a PS4 console before, the PS4 version will be available to download on your PlayStation 5. If you haven't, it'll be behind a lock like you are seeing now. It is still possible to download it, but you'll need a friend who trusts you. First, you will need your friend on his account on his console to go into settings, users and accounts, other, and then console sharing and offline play, and then click disable. Then you log into your friend's account on your PlayStation. Then you go to settings, users and accounts, other, console sharing and offline play again, and then you enable your console as his account's primary PlayStation 5. Then, while logged into his account, you scroll over to game library, your collection, and then if he has access to the PS4 version, it'll be available to download. Once you start downloading it, if you sign back into your account, you'll see it is there being prepared to play. What this console sharing does is it gives you access to all of your friends' games on their account. The downside is your friend will not be able to play his games if he cannot connect to the PSN servers. If the PSN servers are working fine, both of you will still have full access to all of the games. To remove this setting on PC, there are 2 ways you can do it. If you have an NVIDIA graphics card, you can disable it in the NVIDIA control panel like you were seeing on screen. Shout out to Bombin for gathering this footage for me. You open the control panel, go into manage 3D settings and then program settings. You select eFootball as your program and then scroll down towards the bottom and disable vsync. If you don't have an NVIDIA GPU, you can also download a script that allows you to disable vsync and unlock your FPS. The link for this will be in the video description.